Captain Diane Foster stood on the bridge of the survey vessel Northern Star, staring at the planet below. It was beautiful. Blue oceans, green land masses, and swirling white clouds. It looked remarkably like Earth. "Are you sure about these readings?" she asked her science officer, Sam Miller. Sam nodded, his expression serious. "Yes, Captain, the atmosphere is breathable, and there are definite signs of human technology." This was impossible. The Northern Star had ventured far beyond known space, charting unexplored territory for the Confederation. They weren't supposed to find humans out here. Nobody had come this far before. "How long until sunset at the primary settlement?" Diane asked. "About 3 hours, Captain," replied Lieutenant Amy Green from the helm. Diane made her decision. "Prepare a shuttle. I'll lead the away team myself." Sam looked concerned. "Captain, regulations state—" "I know the regulations, Sam," Diane cut him off with a small smile. "But this is too important. If there really are humans down there, I need to see for myself." 90 minutes later, Diane felt the shuttle shake as it entered the planet's atmosphere. With her were Sam, Security Chief Jack Perry, and Communications Officer Linda Brown. "I'm picking up radio transmissions," Linda reported. "Definitely human." "What are they saying?" Diane asked. Linda adjusted her equipment. It's English, Captain. Standard English." The shuttle broke through the cloud layer, revealing a landscape of rolling hills and forests. In the distance, they could see what looked like a small city, buildings of stone and metal arranged in neat patterns. "There," Jack said, pointing. "Looks like some kind of landing field." Diane saw it too, a flat, open area where several small craft were parked. "Take us down, Lieutenant." As the shuttle approached, they could see people gathering. Humans, watching. Their descent with obvious curiosity but no apparent fear. "They're not surprised to see us," Sam noted. "They must have detected our approach." The shuttle landed smoothly on the field. Diane took a deep breath before opening the hatch. The air that flowed in was fresh and clean, carrying the scent of nearby trees. "Remember," she told her team, "we're here to make contact, not to judge. Whatever we find, whatever they tell us, we listen first." They stepped out onto the planet's surface. A group of about 20 humans was waiting for them at a respectful distance. They wore simple clothing, practical garments in earth tones. At the front stood a tall man with graying hair and a neatly trimmed beard. He stepped forward as Diane approached. "Welcome to Haven," he said with a slight smile. "I'm William Carter, Council Leader." "Captain Diane Foster of the Confederation vessel Northern Star," Diane replied, extending her hand. William shook it firmly. "The Confederation? So Earth finally formed one." His casual mention of Earth surprised Diane. "You know about Earth?" William's smile widened. "Know about it? We came from there, Captain. All of us did. Or our ancestors, at least." He gestured toward the city. "Please come with me. We have much to discuss." As they walked, Diane observed the settlement. It was more advanced than it had appeared from above. The buildings incorporated both traditional materials and high technology. People went about their daily business, occasionally glancing at the visitors with interest. "How long have you been here?" Sam asked. "Our colony was established in 2091, William replied. "This is year 258 by our calendar." Diane stumbled slightly. "That's impossible. Humans didn't have faster-than-light travel capability until 2156. William just smiled enigmatically. "So we've been told. Please, save your questions for the council chambers. It's not far." The council building was at the center of the city, a circular structure with a dome roof. Inside, a group of 7 people waited around a large wooden table. William introduced them as the colony's governing council. Once they were seated, William addressed Diane directly. "Before we begin, Captain, I must ask, has Earth encountered the Varaxians yet?" The question caught Diane off guard. "Yes, the Varaxian Empire is the main rival to the Confederation. How do you know about them?" "We've been monitoring their expansion for decades," an older woman on the council explained. "My name is Susan Evans, Defense Minister. The Varaxians Have not discovered us yet, but it's only a matter of time. William nodded. Which brings us to why we're here in the first place. He pressed a button on the table, and a holographic display appeared in the air above them. It showed Earth as it was in the late 21st century. Nations still separate, climate crises in progress, and tensions high. In 2089, William explained, a group of the world's leading scientists, engineers, and military strategists came to a disturbing conclusion. Humanity's survival on Earth was uncertain, and the stars were silent. No alien contact had been made. The hologram shifted to show a series of spacecraft, the same design as the derelict fleet Admiral Bennett and Commander Wright had discovered. Project Safeguard was created in secret, William continued. 12 colony ships, each sent in a different direction with a different mission. We were Colony Ship 7, tasked with developing defensive and propulsion technology. But how? Sam interrupted. Faster-than-light travel wasn't possible then. Susan smiled. That's what the world was told. In reality, a breakthrough had been made, but it was kept secret. The technology was crude and dangerous, but it worked. Diane struggled to process this information. Why the secrecy? Why not share this with everyone? Fear, William said simply. Fear that if everyone knew, there would be chaos. Only a limited number of ships could be built, and only a small percentage of Earth's population could be saved. The project leaders decided it was better to send 12 specialized colonies in secret, rather than attempting a mass evacuation that would fail. Linda spoke up for the first time. And each colony had a different focus? William nodded. Exactly. Colony 1 focused on agriculture and sustainable farming, 2 specialized in medicine, 3 studied alien biology, and so on. We were assigned defense technology. Show them, William, Susan urged. William pressed another button, and the hologram changed to show what looked like a huge underground facility. Within it were ships, dozens of them. This is our fleet, William said proudly. Built and improved upon over generations. On the surface, they look like the original ships that brought us here. Outdated, primitive, but appearances can be deceiving. Diane stared at the hologram in amazement. Those ships, they look like the derelict fleet that was recently found near Sector 47. William and Susan exchanged surprised glances. You found Colony 5's fleet? Susan asked. Were there survivors? No, Diane replied. The ships appeared abandoned. The Confederation is studying them now, but she hesitated, then decided to be honest. The Meridians, one of the Confederation's most advanced species, dismissed them as primitive technology. And now the Varaxians have appeared in the sector, claiming territory. William's face hardened. Then we may be running out of time. The Varaxians have been expanding aggressively for centuries. If they found one of our sister colonies' fleets, they might be able to trace the technology back to its source, to Earth. But why would they care about Earth? Jack asked. Because humans are dangerous, Susan answered. We think differently than the other species. We developed along different technological paths. What seems primitive to the Meridians is actually just different. William stood up and walked to a large window overlooking the city. Captain Foster, I believe we need to make a decision. For centuries we've remained hidden, developing our technology in isolation as we were instructed to do. But if the Varaxians are threatening Earth and the Confederation, Diane joined him at the window. Your colony has been secret for over 200 years. Are you really willing to reveal yourselves now? William turned to her, his expression resolute. We were sent here for a purpose, Captain. Not just to survive, but to be ready when humanity needed us most. I believe that time has come. Back on the Northern Star, Diane briefed her crew on what she had learned. Many were skeptical, but the evidence was convincing. They've invited us to see their shipyards tomorrow, she told her senior officers. According to Carter, their fleet is fully operational and ready for deployment. Do you believe them, Captain? Sam asked. Could their technology really be advanced enough to make a difference against the Varaxians? Diane thought about the confidence in William's eyes. I don't know, but I intend to find out. That night, as she looked out her viewport at the planet below, Diane couldn't help but feel that they had stumbled upon something momentous. Somewhere out there were 11 other human colonies, each developing their own specialized technology, in isolation for over 2 centuries. And now, just as the Confederation faced its greatest threat, they had found one of them. Perhaps the most important one. Tomorrow she would see if the ancient fleet that had been laughed at by the Meridians was really as primitive as it seemed. Somehow she doubted it would be. The lights on the bridge of the Confederation ship Valiant blinked steadily as Admiral Laura Bennett studied the holographic display. The strange fleet they had discovered drifted silently at the edge of mapped space. 27 ships of various sizes, all dark and seemingly lifeless. How long have they been here? Laura asked, her blue eyes never leaving the display. Officer Paul Jones checked his data tablet. Unknown, Admiral. The automated probe found them 3 days ago. Laura nodded slowly. She was 52 years old, with short gray hair and the confident posture of someone who had spent her life in space. The Galactic Confederation had tasked her exploration division with investigating these mysterious vessels. Any signs of life on? She asked. None, Admiral. They appear to be derelict. The door to the bridge slid open with a soft hiss. Commander Alan Wright entered, carrying his own tablet. Alan was the Confederation's top xenoarchaeologist, an expert in studying alien artifacts. He was younger than Laura, with kind eyes and a thoughtful expression. Commander Wright, Laura said. Your thoughts? Alan walked to the display and zoomed in on one of the larger ships. They're old, Admiral. Very old. The design suggests they were built for both combat and transport. A refugee fleet? Officer Jones suggested. Possibly, Alan replied. Or perhaps a colony expedition that never reached its destination. Laura tapped a command into the console. We'll send over an investigation team. Commander Wright, you'll lead. 4 hours later, Alan floated through the empty corridors of the largest ship. His team moved carefully in their white spacesuits, lights mounted on their helmets cutting through the darkness. The artificial gravity had long since failed and dust particles hung suspended in the air. This technology is primitive, said Lieutenant Kelly Wilson, the team's engineer. She ran her scanner over a control panel. I'd guess it's at least 200 years old, maybe more. Alan didn't respond immediately. Something about the ship felt familiar, though he couldn't place why. The design was unlike anything in the Confederation database, yet there was something human about it. Sir, called Ensign Greg Harris from down the corridor. You should see this. Alan pushed himself through the zero gravity toward Greg. The young ensign had opened a panel on the wall, revealing strange markings. What do you make of this? Greg asked. Alan leaned closer, his heart suddenly racing. The markings weren't alien at all. They were English letters and numbers, faded but unmistakable. A manufacturing code and a date. UNAEC 289. This is impossible, Alan whispered. Sir? Greg looked confused. These ships are human-made, Alan said, his voice filled with wonder. From Earth. That can't be right, Kelly said, joining them. Humans didn't have this kind of space travel capability in 2089. The first faster-than-light human ship wasn't launched until 2156. Alan touched the panel gently. And yet, here it is. By the time they returned to the Valiant, news of their discovery had already reached the Confederation Council. The ship's communication system lit up with incoming messages. The Meridians, one of the Confederation's most advanced species, had requested permission to send their own team. Laura was not pleased. They invited themselves to our discovery, she told Alan as they waited in the docking bay for the Meridian ship to arrive. They're curious, Alan replied, as we all are. The Meridian vessel was sleek and silver, a stark contrast to the Confederation's more utilitarian design. It docked with practiced precision, and soon 3 Meridians entered the Valiant. Meridians resembled tall, thin humans with pale blue skin and large eyes. They moved with a natural grace that made them appear to be almost floating. The leader, Ambassador Nara, approached Laura with a slight bow. "Admiral Bennett," she said, her voice musical. "Thank you for allowing us to join your investigation." Laura nodded stiffly. "Of course, Ambassador. Commander Wright will brief you on what we've found." As Alan explained their discoveries, he noticed the Meridians exchanging amused glances. "You believe these vessels are of human origin?" Nara asked when he finished. "The evidence suggests so," Alan replied. Nara's lips curved into a small smile. "How quaint. We had assumed they belonged to a long-extinct civilization. The design is so primitive." Alan felt a flash of irritation, but kept his expression neutral. Primitive or not, they made it farther into space than humans were supposed to be capable of at that time. "Perhaps," Nara conceded, "but they clearly failed in whatever mission they were attempting." The Meridians insisted on examining the fleet themselves. Alan watched from the Valiant as their shuttle approached the derelict ships. On the main screen, he could see the Meridian scientists moving through the same corridors his team had explored earlier. "Look at these weapon systems," one Meridian said, his voice coming through the communication link. "Completely ineffective, by modern standards." "The propulsion technology is equally outdated," another added. "It's amazing they made it this far from Earth." Alan's frown deepened. The Meridian's dismissive attitude bothered him more than it should. "They're missing something," he told Laura quietly. "What do you mean?" she asked. "I'm not sure yet," Alan admitted. "But those ships don't make sense. How did they get here? Why were they sent so far from Earth before humans had proper space travel technology? And why do they have weapon systems at all?" While the Meridians continued their survey, Alan retreated to his laboratory on the Valiant. He had downloaded some data from the derelict ship's computers, though most systems were too damaged to access. For hours, he analyzed the fragments of information. Most was corrupted beyond recovery, but he found something strange. Power readings. Extremely faint but present. "These ships aren't dead," he whispered to himself. "They're dormant." Just as this realization hit him, the Valiant's alarm system activated. Red lights flashed throughout the ship. "All personnel to battle stations," Laura's voice came through the speakers. "Unidentified vessels approaching at high speed." Alan rushed back to the bridge. The holographic display now showed 5 ships moving toward them. Their design was aggressive, all sharp angles and weapon ports. "Varaxians," Officer Jones said grimly. The Varaxian Empire was the Confederation's main rival, a militaristic society that viewed diplomacy as weakness. Relations had been tense for years but had worsened in recent months. "They're hailing us," said the communications officer. Laura nodded. On screen, the face that appeared was reptilian, with red scales and yellow eyes. "Confederation vessel," the Varaxian commander hissed. "You are trespassing in space claimed by the Varaxian Empire." "This region is unclaimed," Laura replied calmly. "We are conducting a scientific expedition." The Varaxian's eyes narrowed. "Your expedition ends now. Surrender your vessels or be destroyed." Before Laura could respond, another voice cut in. It was Ambassador Nara, speaking from her ship. "The Confederation and Meridian Alliance do not recognize Varaxian claims to this region," she said coldly. "We suggest you withdraw." The Varaxian commander laughed, showing sharp teeth. "You suggest? Your arrogance is amusing, Meridian. Your technology may be advanced, but our numbers are greater. This is merely the first wave." The transmission ended abruptly. Laura turned to her tactical officer. "Options?" "We're outgunned, Admiral," he replied grimly. "The Meridian vessel has better weapons than ours, but not enough to handle 5 Varaxian warships." Alan stepped forward. "Admiral, we need to wake up the fleet." Laura looked at him in confusion. "What?" "The derelict ships," Alan explained quickly. "They're not dead, just dormant. And if they were built by humans as an armed expedition, they might be our only chance." Laura hesitated only briefly. "Do it. Whatever you need." As the Varaxian ships moved closer, Alan rushed back to his laboratory. The ancient fleet waited silently in space, their secret still hidden. For now, Alarms blared throughout the Confederation ship Valiant. Admiral Laura Bennett gripped the edge of her command console as another blast rocked the vessel. "Shields at 43%, reported Officer Paul Jones, his voice steady despite the chaos. Laura's eyes darted between the tactical display and the main view screen. 5 Voraxian warships had surrounded them and the Meridian vessel. Their initial demands for surrender had quickly given way to attacks. "The Meridians?" Laura asked. "Taking heavy damage," Paul replied. "Their shields are more advanced than ours, but they won't last much longer against this firepower." Commander Alan Wright burst onto the bridge, breathless from running. "Admiral, I need access to the main communication array." Laura glanced at him sharply. "Why?" "I think I know how to activate the derelict fleet," Alan explained quickly, "but I need to broadcast on a specific frequency." Another blast hit the Valiant, sending tremors through the deck plates. "Shields at 31%, Paul announced grimly. Laura made her decision. "Do it, Commander. We have nothing to lose." Alan rushed to the communication station. The young officer there moved aside as Alan began inputting commands. "What are you doing?" Ambassador Nara demanded as she entered the bridge. The Meridian's usual composure was gone, replaced by barely controlled panic. "Trying to save all our lives," Alan replied without looking up. Nara moved closer. "By accessing those worthless old ships? This is hardly the time for archaeological curiosity, Commander." Alan ignored her, focusing instead on his work. He had discovered a pattern in the power readings from the derelict fleet, a cycle that suggested some kind of automated system waiting for a signal. "Broadcasting now," he announced. For several tense seconds, nothing happened. The Voraxian ships continued their attack, methodically wearing down the defenses of both the Valiant and the Meridian vessel. Then, suddenly, lights began to appear on the derelict fleet. One by one, the ancient ships came to life. "It's working," Alan breathed. On the main view screen, they watched as the supposedly abandoned ships began to move. Their movements were slow at first, then steadily more coordinated. "The Voraxians are noticing," Paul reported. 2 ships breaking off to intercept the fleet." Laura leaned forward in her chair. "What kind of weapons do those old ships have, Commander?" "I don't know," Alan admitted. "But I hope we're about to find out." The 2 Voraxian warships approached the awakened fleet, weapons firing. Energy blasts struck the lead ship of the ancient fleet dead center, and did nothing. "No damage detected," Paul said in disbelief. "The old ships are completely unaffected." Ambassador Nara moved closer to the view screen, her large eyes wide with shock. How is that possible? Their hulls looked fragile, outdated. The ancient fleet continued its advance, still not firing any weapons of their own. The Voraxian ships intensified their attack, pouring energy into their weapons. Still no effect. Then, the lead ship of the ancient fleet emitted a pulse of blue energy. It wasn't directed at the Voraxian vessels, but spread outward in all directions. When it reached the enemy ships, their lights flickered and died. "The Voraxian ships have lost power," Paul reported, amazement in his voice. "All systems down." Before anyone could respond, the communications console beeped. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer announced. "From the fleet." On screen, Laura ordered. The face that appeared wasn't alien. It was human, a woman with short brown hair and determined eyes. "This is Captain Diane Foster of the survey vessel Northern Star," she said. "We received your distress signal. Looks like we arrived just in time." Miles away, on the planet Haven, William Carter watched the battle from the colony's control center. Surrounding him were his fellow council members and several high-ranking officers from their defense forces. "Power dampening fields working perfectly," reported Susan Evans, monitoring the displays. "The Voraxian ships are completely neutralized." William nodded, satisfaction evident on his face. "And our shields?" 100% effective, another officer replied. "They couldn't even scratch the paint." William turned to the main screen, where they could see the Confederation and Meridian vessels. Both had taken damage but remained operational. "Open a channel to all ships," he ordered. When the connection was established, William spoke clearly. This is Council Leader William Carter of Haven Colony. The immediate threat has been contained, but more Varaxian ships will likely follow. I'm extending an invitation to the commanders of the Confederation and Meridian vessels to join us on Haven. We have much to discuss. 2 hours later, William stood in the colony's grand meeting hall. Beside him were Susan Evans and other council members. Across the table sat Admiral Laura Bennett, Commander Alan Wright, and Ambassador Nara, along with Captain Diane Foster and her senior officers. "So let me understand this correctly," Laura said, breaking the silence that had fallen after William's explanation. "Your colony was established over 2 centuries ago as part of a secret Earth project." "Yes," William confirmed. "Project Safeguard, 12 colonies, each with a different technological focus." "And you've been developing defensive technology all this time," Alan added. "In complete isolation." William nodded. "Exactly. The philosophy behind Project Safeguard was simple. Diversification ensures survival. If humanity put all its technological eggs in one basket and that approach failed, we'd be extinct." Ambassador Nara, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. "The technology you displayed today, it far exceeds anything in the Confederation. Even Meridian shields cannot completely, neutralize Varaxian weapons." "We took a different approach," Susan explained. "While most species developed energy weapons and shields designed to absorb or deflect those energies, we focused on manipulating the energies themselves." She activated a holographic display showing diagrams of their technology. "Our ships don't stop enemy weapons. They redirect the energy, sometimes even absorbing it to power our own systems." Commander Wright leaned forward, fascinated. "And the pulse that disabled the Varaxian ships?" "A targeted electromagnetic field," Susan replied. "It temporarily disrupts any technology within range. We can calibrate it to affect only specific systems if needed." Laura's expression remained skeptical. "If Earth had this technology, why keep it hidden? The Confederation has been fighting the Varaxians for decades." William's face grew solemn. "That was always the dilemma built into Project Safeguard. When to reveal ourselves. The project's founders believed that premature revelation might lead to the technology being misused or falling into the wrong hands before it was fully developed." He looked around the table. "Each colony was instructed to wait until either we were discovered or Earth faced an existential threat." "Well, we've been discovered now," Diane pointed out. "Yes," William agreed. "And from what Captain Foster has told us, the Varaxians are pushing into Confederation space more aggressively than ever. It's time for Haven to fulfill its purpose." Ambassador Nara's face showed a mix of emotions: awe, respect, and a touch of fear. "The Meridian Alliance always believed our technology was the most advanced in known space. We may have been mistaken." Alan couldn't help but smile slightly at the ambassador's admission. The same Meridians who had laughed at the primitive fleet were now stunned into humility. "What happens next?" Laura asked. William and Susan exchanged glances. "We deploy our fleet," William said, "and we contact the other colonies." "Other colonies?" Nara asked sharply. 11 others, Susan confirmed. "Each with their own technological specialties. Medicine, agriculture, energy production, and more." Laura sat back in her chair, processing the implications. "So humanity has been preparing for this moment for centuries." "Yes," William said simply. "The question is, will the Confederation accept our help? And can we find the other colonies in time? The Varaxians will return with a larger force once they realize what happened here." Alan spoke up. "The derelict fleet we found, you called it Colony 5's fleet?" William nodded. "Communications colony. They would have been developing ways to coordinate between the scattered colonies and Earth. If their fleet is abandoned, then something went wrong," Susan finished grimly. The meeting continued for hours as they shared information. The Haveners explained more about their technology, while Laura and Diane briefed them on the current political situation in the Confederation. As night fell, they moved to a balcony overlooking the city. The lights of Haven glowed softly in the darkness, a testament to human ingenuity and survival. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Alan said, standing beside Susan. "A piece of humanity, thriving so far from Earth." Susan smiled. "We've always seen ourselves as caretakers, preserving and advancing human knowledge, waiting for the day we'd be needed." "The Meridians aren't taking this well," Laura commented, joining them. "Ambassador Nara has sent numerous messages back to her government." "Pride can be a dangerous thing," William said, approaching with Diane. "The Meridians believed their technological path was the only valid one. Now they're faced with evidence that there are other approaches they never considered." Diane looked up at the stars. "The Varaxians won't stay away for long. Our sensors detect communications between their disabled ships and others beyond our system. Then we need to move quickly," William decided. "We'll begin preparations to deploy our full fleet immediately." The grand hall on Proxima Centauri's main station buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 17 Confederation species had gathered for the emergency summit. The Varaxian ultimatum had arrived 3 days ago. Surrender or face destruction. Admiral Laura Bennett stood at the viewport, watching as ships from across the Confederation arrived. The fleet they had assembled was impressive, the best vessels from every member world. But according to intelligence reports, the Varaxians had sent twice as many. "Do you think it will be enough?" asked Commander Alan Wright, joining her at the window. Laura didn't answer immediately. She had been asking herself the same question for days. "It has to be." "Any word from Captain Foster?" Alan asked. "Her last message said they were on their way," Laura replied. "But even with Haven's fleet, we'll be outnumbered." The door to the hall slid open, and Ambassador Nara entered with her delegation. The Meridians moved with their usual grace, but their expressions were tense. Behind them came representatives from the other Confederation species, the insectoid Verine, the gaseous Eltar, and a dozen others. Once everyone was seated, Laura took her place at the head of the table. As the highest-ranking Confederation officer present, it fell to her to lead the meeting. "The Varaxian Armada will reach Proxima Centauri in approximately 19 hours, she began without preamble. "Their ambassador will arrive ahead of the fleet to present their final demands, which we all know will be complete surrender," said the Verine representative, his mandibles clicking nervously. "Precisely," Laura agreed. "Intelligence suggests they've gathered nearly 300 warships. We have 142. Murmurs spread around the table. Even the usually stoic Eltar representative's gas cloud pulsed with agitation. "What about the human colony's fleet?" Ambassador Nara asked. "The technology they displayed against the Varaxian scout force was remarkable." Laura nodded. "Captain, Foster and Council Leader Carter are bringing as many ships as they could prepare in time. But Haven is only one colony." "What of the others you mentioned?" an Eltar asked, their voice like wind through chimes. "You spoke of 12 human colonies." "We've been attempting to locate them," Alan explained. "The abandoned fleet we found belonged to one such colony. We've sent messages using their communication systems, but so far we've received no response." The room fell silent as the gravity of their situation sank in. Even with Haven's advanced ships, they would still be facing overwhelming odds. "Perhaps we should consider the Varaxian terms," suggested a representative from one of the smaller worlds. "Capitulation might be preferable to annihilation." "Capitulation would mean slavery," Laura said firmly. "The Varaxians don't seek allies. They want subjects. We've all seen how they treat conquered worlds." Before anyone could respond, Laura's communication device beeped. She checked the message and felt a surge of hope. "Captain Foster's fleet has arrived," she announced, "and they've brought a surprise." 20 minutes later, the viewing screen in the hall showed an incredible sight. The Haven fleet had indeed arrived. 40 ships of various sizes, all bearing the camouflaged, seemingly ancient design that had fooled the Meridians. But they weren't alone. Alongside them flew 15 more vessels of a completely different design, sleek white ships with unusual curved hulls, and behind those another group, 30 massive green vessels that resembled floating gardens more than warships. "What are we looking at?" Ambassador Nara asked, her voice hushed with awe. The door opened and Captain Diane Foster entered, accompanied by William Carter and two strangers, a dark. 6 months after the battle at Proxima Centauri, the Grand Council chamber on Earth buzzed with excitement. Representatives from all 12 human colonies had gathered with leaders from the Confederation and the Meridian Alliance. It was the first such gathering in history, a summit to forge a new era of cooperation. Admiral Laura Bennett stood near the massive windows overlooking the rebuilt city of Geneva. Earth had changed much since her last visit. Knowledge shared by the colonies had already begun to transform human society. "Quite a view, isn't it?" Commander Alan Wright said, joining her. Laura nodded. "Hard to believe how much has happened in such a short time." Alan smiled. The Varaxians suing for peace, the colonies sharing their technology, the Meridians admitting they might not know everything. That last one might be the most surprising, Laura said with a small laugh. Across the room, Ambassador Nara was deep in conversation with Dr. Olivia Johnson from Colony 3. The Meridian diplomat had become one of the strongest advocates for technological cooperation between species. "The biological components are compatible with our systems?" Nara was asking. "I would have thought the integration would be more difficult." "That's the beauty of our approach," Olivia explained. "The biotech adapts to its environment. It learns." William Carter entered the chamber, accompanied by Captain Diane Foster. Over the past months, Diane had acted as the primary liaison between Earth and the colonies, traveling between worlds to help coordinate their reunion. "Admiral, Commander," William greeted them warmly. "The final colony representatives have arrived. We're just waiting for the council president now." Laura shook his hand. "How does it feel to be back on Earth after all these years?" "Strange," William admitted. "But good. When our ancestors left, they never expected their descendants would return to help save the planet rather than simply survive its loss." A soft chime sounded, and the chamber fell silent as Council President Maria Garcia entered. She took her place at the center of the circular table where the most important delegates were seated. "Welcome all," she began, her voice strong and clear. "Today marks a historic moment not just for humanity, but for all sentient species in our shared galaxy." She gestured to the colonial representatives. "For over 2 centuries, 12 branches of humanity developed in isolation, each focusing on different paths of knowledge and technology. Now we reunite not as saviors or the saved, but as equals with unique gifts to share." Maria turned to the alien representatives. "To our friends from the Confederation and the Meridian Alliance, we thank you for your openness to new ideas. The defensive cooperation that halted the Varaxian advance is just the beginning of what we can accomplish together." Alan watched as the delegates listened attentively. 6 months ago, many of these same species had dismissed human technology as primitive and outdated. Now they leaned forward, eager to learn from the colonies that had arrived in ships disguised as ancient relics. The meeting proceeded smoothly, with representatives from each colony presenting their specialties. Colony 9 demonstrated energy conversion systems that could power cities with minimal resources. Colony 6 showed medical technology that could cure diseases thought incurable. Colony 12 revealed agricultural methods that could transform barren worlds into lush gardens. During a break in the proceedings, Alan found himself speaking with Dr. Kira Reynolds, the Meridian scientist who had been working with the colonial engineers since the battle. "We've established the first joint research facility on Meridia Prime," she told him excitedly. "Scientists from all colonies and Confederation species working together. The advances we've made in just 6 months are unprecedented." "What's been the most surprising discovery?" Alan asked. Kira's large eyes shimmered with enthusiasm. "The realization that what we thought were technological dead ends were actually just unexplored paths. For centuries, the Meridians focused on pure energy manipulation, dismissing biological integration as inefficient. Now we're seeing that the combination creates possibilities neither approach could achieve alone." Across the room, Susan Evans, from Haven Colony was speaking with Varaxian Ambassador Cyrex. The once arrogant reptilian diplomat now spoke with cautious respect. The power-dampening technology, Cyrex was saying. My government is interested in its peaceful applications, for energy regulation, not weapons. Susan nodded. We'd be happy to discuss cooperative development. The technology works best when adapted to specific energy signatures. The fact that the Varaxians were now seeking cooperation rather than conquest was perhaps the most profound change of all. Their defeat at Proxima Centauri had forced a fundamental reassessment of their approach to interspecies relations. After the break, the summit turned to practical matters: treaties, trade agreements, and educational exchanges. Plans were made for citizens from Earth to visit the colonies and for colonists to return to the homeworld their ancestors had left behind. We'll need to establish a formal diplomatic corps, Laura commented to Alan as they listened. Representatives trained specifically to understand colonial technology and culture. I might be interested in that role, Alan replied thoughtfully. After seeing what the colonies have accomplished, I want to be part of building bridges between our separated branches of humanity. When the formal proceedings ended for the day, a reception was held in the adjacent garden. The warm evening air carried the scent of flowers as delegates mingled freely. William found Laura enjoying a quiet moment by a fountain. Beautiful, isn't it? He said, gesturing to the garden. Colony 4 specialized in environmental adaptation. They've already begun helping to restore ecosystems damaged during Earth's climate crisis. Laura nodded. It's almost overwhelming. All these advances appearing at once. That was the genius of Project Safeguard, William replied. Diversification. By following different paths, humanity multiplied its chances of solving the great challenges. And the great irony, Laura added, is that the same fleet that was laughed at as outdated ended up saving us all. William smiled. Appearances can be deceiving. That was always part of our strategy. The ships looked primitive because that was their camouflage, their protection until they were needed. Later that evening, a smaller group gathered in President Garcia's private office. Laura and Alan represented the Confederation military, while William, Diane, and representatives from several colonies spoke for the formerly lost branches of humanity. We need to discuss what comes next, the president said once everyone was seated. The immediate Varaxian threat has been contained, but there will be other challenges. We've confirmed that all 12 colonies survived, Diane reported, though Colony 5 suffered heavy losses before abandoning their fleet, the one Commander Wright discovered. Alan nodded. What happened to them? Disease, explained the representative from Colony 5. A virus that infected their life support systems. They were forced to evacuate to their planetary settlement and abandon the fleet. By the time they developed a cure, they no longer had the resources to reclaim the ships. But all the colonies are now in contact, Diane continued, and each is willing to share their technological specialties. President Garcia leaned forward. The question is, how do we proceed? Do we fully integrate the colonies back into Earth society? Do they maintain their independence? How do we prevent any one group, human or alien, from monopolizing these technologies? We've discussed this among the colonial leaders, William said. We propose a federation model. Each colony maintains its autonomy but participates in a joint council with Earth and contributes to shared research. And we've been working with the Confederation and Meridian representatives, added Olivia from Colony 3. We're developing protocols for responsible technology sharing that ensures no single world gains a decisive military advantage. The discussions continued late into the night as the small group outlined the framework for a new interstellar community. It would be built not on domination or technological superiority, but on the principle that different approaches and perspectives had inherent value. 3 days later, as the summit concluded, Alan stood with Diane on the observation deck of the orbital station. Below them, Earth shone blue and green against the blackness of space, while ships from the colonies and alien worlds moved in stately orbits. Where will you go next? Alan asked. Diane smiled. Back to Haven first, to help coordinate the technology, Transfers. Then to Colony 11. They specialized in faster-than-light propulsion. Their advances could reduce interstellar travel time by 70%. And change everything again, Alan commented. That's the one constant we can count on, Diane replied. Change. She pointed to a group of ships docking with the station, the ancient fleet that had started it all. Up close, their true nature was now apparent. What had seemed like rust and decay was actually a sophisticated camouflage system. Beneath the facade lay some of the most advanced technology in known space. They're being retrofitted, Diane explained. No need for the disguise anymore. I almost think they should keep it, Alan said with a smile. As a reminder not to judge by appearances. Perhaps a few, as museum pieces, Diane agreed. Future generations should remember the lesson.